Eve of Independence. After studying this chapter, the learner became familiar with the state of the Indian economy in 1947, the year of Indian independence. Understand the factors that led to underdevelopment and stagnation of the Indian economy. Introduction. India is in pivot of the empire, with the empire losses on our part of the dominance of its caused. But when we lost India, the sum of our empire will have set. Means introduction. The primary object of this book, Indian economy development. Okay. It is familiar with these basic features of the Indian economy and its development. Let's study this aftermath of the independence. Okay. However, it is equally important to know someone's maybe country economic past even as we learned about this present state of this Indian perspectives. So let us first look at this state of the Indian economy prior to the country independence. So let us first look at the state of Indian economy prior to the country independence and the form of an idea of the various considers that shaped Indians post-independence development strategies. Okay. The structure of Indian present-day economy is not just a current making. It has a root steeped in history, particularly in this period when India was under British rules, which lasted almost 2 centuries before India finally won this independence on 15th August 1947. The sole purpose of this British colonial rule in India was to reduce the countries to being a raw material supplier to Great Britain, on rapidly expanding moderate industrial bases. An understanding of this exploitation's nature of this relationship is essential for any assessments for the kind and level of the development which the Indian economy has been able to attain over the last 7.5 decades. First point, okay. Low level of economic development under the colonial rule. Okay. India has an independent economy before the evidence of the British rule. Through agriculture was in the main source of the livelihood as the most people, yet the country's economy was characterized by various kind of the manufacturing activities. India was particularly well known for this handicraft industries, okay, in this field, the cotton and silks, textiles, metal and precious stones works. This product enjoys a worldwide market based on this reputation of this fine quality of material used in the high standard of craftsmanship seen in import from Indian Sea Box 1.1. Okay, textile industry in Bengal. Muslin is a type of cotton textile, muslin, which has its origin in Bengal. Okay, particularly placed in this and around Dhaka spell during the pre-independence period as Dhaka. Now the capital city of Bangladesh, Dhaka muslin has gained worldwide fame as an exquisite type of cotton. The finest various of muslin was called malmal. Okay, sometimes foreign traveler also use it to refer is malmal shasi, malmal cause, implying at that warm by or fit for or royalty. Okay. The economic policies pursued by the colonial government in India were concerned more with the protections and promotions of the economic interest of their home country than with the development of this Indian economy. Such policies have brought about a fundamental change in the structure of the Indian economy, okay, transforming the country into the supplier of raw material and consumer of finished industrial products from Britain. Okay, obviously, the colonial government never made any sense attempts to estimate India's nation as per capita income. Some individuals attempt which were made to measure such incomes yield conflicting and consistent result among the notable estimators. Dadabai Nauroji, okay. William Digby, Finley Sherras, V.K. R.V. Rao, R.C. Desha, it was Rao. Okay. These estimations during the colonial period were considered very significant. However, most studies did find that the country grows aggregate yields output during the first half of the 20th century. Is less than 2% of the coupled with the immediate 0.5% of the growth in per capita output per year. Agricultural sectors. Okay. India's economy under the British colonial rule remained fundamentally agrarian, and 80% of the country's population lived mostly in the villages and deriving livelihood direct or indirect from agriculture. Okay, see the box. Agriculture during the pre-British India. Okay, however, despite being the occupation of such as large populations and agriculture sectors continued to experience stagnations and not infrequently unusual deteriorations. Agriculture productivity become low enough in absolute terms. The sector experienced some growth due to the expansion of the aggregation area under cultivation. The stagnations in this agricultural sector was caused mainly because of the various systems of land settlement that were introduced by the colonial government, particularly under the Jamindari system, which was implemented in this then Bengal Jamindari system, which was implemented in the Bengal president's compressing part of the India. Present day estimate states the profit accruing out of the agriculture sectors went to the Jamindars instead cultivators. Okay. However, the considerable number of the Jamindars and not just a colonial government did nothing to improve the conditions of agriculture The main interest of the Jamindars was only the collector rent, regardless of the economic conditions of the cultivators. Mhm. This caused immense and social tensions among the latter to a very great extent. The term and the revenue settlement were also responsible for the Jamindar adaptations such as attitude. Days for depositing a specific sum of the revenue were fixed. Okay. Failing which the Jamindars were to lose their rights. Beside this, low levels of technology, lack of irrigation facilities, and negli- negligible use of fertilities all added to this aggravate the plight. The famous and contributions to the dismal level of the agricultural productivity. There was, of course, some evidence of the relative higher yield of crops in the certain area of the country due to commercialization of agriculture. The agriculture during the pre-British India, the French traveler Bonnier, Bonnier French traveler, describes 17th century Bengals in this following way. The knowledge I have acquired of the Bengal in 2 visits inclines me to believe that the richest man Egypt, it explored the abundance of cotton and silk, rice, sugar and butter. Silk, rice, sugar, butter. It produced a play for its own consumption. Wheat, vegetables, grains, fowl, ducks, and geese. It has immense herds of pigs, and flock of sheep and goats, fish of every kind. It has a profusion. From Rajmahal to the sea, it has endless number of the canals cut in bygone ages from the Ganges by immense labor of the navigations and irrigation. Sector continued to experience stagnations and not infrequently it's completed. No. But this could hardly help farmers in improving their economic conditions, as instead of productions food crops, which were to be ultimately used by British industrials back home. Despite some progress made in irrigation, India's agriculture was starved of the investment in terracing, flood control, drainage, and desalination of soils. While a small section of the farmers changed their cropping pattern from food crops to commercial crops. Okay, a large section of tenants, small farmers, and sharecroppers neither had resources and technology nor had incentives to invest in agriculture. Oh. Industrial sector. As in this case of agriculture, so also in manufacturing, India could not develop a sound industrial base under the colonial rule. Even as a country, world famous handicraft industries declined. Okay. No corresponding moderate industrial base was allowed to come up to take pride of place so long enjoyed by these farmers. The primary motive of the colonial government behind this policy of the systematically deindustrializing India was twofold. The intention was first to reduce India's to the status of mere export of the important raw material from the upcoming modern industries in Britain, and second one to turn India to sprawling market for this finished product from these industries so that their continued expansion could be ensues to the maximum advance of their home country, Britain. And this unfolding economic scenario, the decline of the indigenous handicraft industries created not only massive unemployment in the India but also a new demand in the India's consumers market, which was not deprived of the supplies of the local made goods. This demand was profitable met by the increasing imports from the cheap manufacturing goods from Britain. Hello everyone. Hi. What? During the second half During the second half of the 19th century, modern industries began to take root in India, but its progress remained very slow. Okay, slow. Initially, this development was confined to the setting up of the cotton and jute textile mills. Cotton and jute textiles. Okay, the cotton textiles mills, mainly dominated by the Indians, were located in the western part of this country, namely Maharashtra, Gujarat. While these jute mills, dominated by the foreigners, were mainly concerned in Bengal. Subsequently, the iron and steel industries began coming up in the beginning of the 20th century. The Tata Iron and Steel Company was incorporated in 1907. A few other industries in this field of sugar, cement, paper came up after the Second World War. After the Second World War, okay. However, there was hardly any capital goods industries to help promote further industrializations in India. Capital good industries means industries which can produce machine tools which are in turn used for production articles of the current consumptions. The establishment of then a few manufacturing units. There was no substitute to near wholesale displacement of this country traditional handicraft industries. Furthermore, the growth rate of these new industries sectors and its contributions to the gross domestic product or gross value added remained very small. Another significant drawback of the new industries sector was the very limited area of the operation of this public sector. This sector remains continued only to railways, power generation, communication, port, and some other departments undertaking services. Okay. Foreign trades. Foreign trades. India has been the important tradition nation since incidents ancient times. Since ancient time. Okay. India has been the important trading nation since ancient times, but the restrictive policies of the commodity production, trade and tariff pursued by the colonial government advisingly affected the structure, compositions, and value of the India's foreign trade. Consequently, an exporter. India became an exporter of primary products such as raw silk, cotton, wool, sugar, indigo, jute, and all and an importer, okay, importer of finished consumer goods like cotton, silk, and woolen cloths, and capital goods like mechanic machinery products in the factories of the Britons. Okay, primary products, centuries finished products ఇంపోర్ట్ చేసుకుంటున్నారు. ఓకే, for all partial purposes, Britain maintained a monopoly control over India. Britain. Okay. India 6% imports. As a result, more than half of the India foreign trade was restricted to Britain, while the rest was allowed with a few other countries like China, Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and Persia, Iran. Persia means Iran. Okay. The opening of the Suez Canal and further intensified British control over India foreign trades. Okay, India foreign trades here. Oh, how are you? I'm superb and extraordinary. What about you, please? Hope you're doing good. This is a Suez. Yeah, this is a Suez Canal and trade through this Suez Canal. Suez Canal is the artificial waterway running from north to south across. Okay, ఇలా వస్తుంది. Yeah, extraordinary, dear. Okay. Isthmus of Suez in northeastern Egypt. Yeah, northeastern Egypt here. Okay. And it connect to Port Said on the Mediterranean Sea. Connect with the Mediterranean Sea here. This is that one. And with the Gulf of Suez as arm of the Red Sea. Arms of the Red Sea, Gulf of Suez, and arm of the Red Sea. Where is Red Sea? This is one Red Sea. The canal provides a direct trade route for ships, okay, operating between European or American port and port located South Asia, East Africa, and ocean by doing away with the need to sail around Africa. Okay. Strategically and economically, it is one of the most important waterways in the world. Yeah, strategically and economically, the Suez Canal is the important waterways in the world. Its opening in 1869 reduced the cost of the transportations and made access to Indian market easier. The most important characteristics in a foreign trade through this colonial period was generation of the large export surplus, but the surplus comes a huge cost of the country economy. Yes, it was. Once check it please. I am reading just now. India economic development. Here mentioned Suez only. This one. Please refer once again. Okay. Several essential commodities, food grains, cloths, and kerosene. Kerosene is nothing but crude oil, natural gas, kerosene, all are related to petrol. Okay. Is scarcely available as a domestic market. Furthermore, this export surplus did not result in any flow of gold or silver into India. Did not result in any flow of gold. Export surplus. Rather, it was used to make payments of the expenses incurred by an office get up by the colonial government in British expense of the war against further by the British government, and it important of invisible items of this all led to drain in Indian wealth. Okay, all of which led to The drain of Indian wealth. Yeah, petrol. Kerosene is nothing but one of the part of this petrol. Okay. Demographic conditions. Okay. Various details about this population of the British India were first collected through a census in 1881. Okay, various details of the populations of British India were first collected through a census in 1881. Okay, the suffering from certain limitations, it revealed that unevenness in India's population's growth subsequently every 10 years. Yeah, census. Okay, first 1881 census. And every year 10 years. Okay, such census operations was carried out. Before 1921, India was in the first stage of demographic transition. Okay, India was the first stage of demographic transitions. Okay, the second stage of transitions begins after 1921. However, neither this total population of the India's nor the population's growth at this stage was very high. The various social development indicators were also not quite engaging. The overall literacy level was less than 16%. Literacy level was 16%. Out of this, the female literacy level was at this negligible low and about 7%. Female literacy level only 7%. And public health and facilities were either unavailable to large chunks of the populations or when available were highly inadequate. Consequently, water and airborne diseases was rampant, and look at the huge toll on life. No wonder the overall mortality rate was very high in this that. Very high means how much? Particularly, the infant mortality rate was quite alarming. About 218 per thousand. Oh, it's too high. 218 per thousand. Constructs to this present infant mortality rate is 33. Present mortality rate 33, but in those period 218. Life expectancy was also very low, 32 years in construct. There's a person present 69. Life expectancy 32 years, but present 69. On the absence of the reliable data, yes, I have my exams for next year, targeting 2026. Sorry. Recently, I gave an attempt. Unfortunately, I am not cleared that prelims. That's why started again and again. And this absence of the reliable data, it is difficult to specify extent of the poverty at this time, but there is no doubt that extensive poverty prevailed in India during the colonial period, which contributed to the vanishing profile of India populations of this time. Occupation structure, what have we discussed until now? First one, low level of economy under colonial rule. Okay, agriculture sector, industrial sector, and foreign trades. Demographic conditions, agriculture and industrial. Where is service sector? Service sectors also. Okay. Demographic conditions. Now, occupational structure. Do you have exams coming? Yes, I have my exams in 2026, May 24th. Occupational structure. During the colonial period, the occupational structure of the India distributed of the working persons across different industries and sectors showed little sign of the changing the agriculture sectors accounted for the largest share of the workforce, which usually remained at the high of 70 to 75%, while the manufacturing and the service sector accounted of the only 10% to 20% represented. Okay, just wait. Agriculture sectors accounted for the largest share of workplace. Okay, which usually high agriculture 70 to 75%, and service sector, manufacturing sector only 10%, and service sector 15 to 20%. Okay. Another striking aspects. What exam is this? All the best. Do well. Thank you very much. I gave my attempt without the basics. एनसीईआरटी बेसिक्स नहीं था, अभी बेसिक्स बिल्ड करने के लिए शुरू किया. Thank you very much for your wishes. Another striking aspect was the growing regional variations. Part of this then Madras. Okay, Madras Presidency, comprising area of the present day state in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Kerala. Madras Presidency. Okay, and Bombay and Bengal witnessed as a decline in the dependence of the workforce on this agriculture sectors, which commensurate increase in this manufacturing and the service sectors. How this has been an increase in the share of workplace in the agriculture during the same time in the state such as Orissa, Odisha, Rajasthan and Punjab. Okay. Infrastructure. Okay. Another colonial reason, basic infrastructure such as railways, port and water transportation, post and telegraph developed. Oh yeah, I know that. Railways, ports, water transportations, post and telegraph developed. However, the real motive behind this development was not to provide basic amenities to the people but to subserve various colonial interests. Road construction in India prior to the advent of this British rule were not fit for modern transportations. The roads that were built primarily served the purposes of mobilizing the army within India and drawing out raw material from the countryside to the nearest railway stations or the port to sea and send these to the far away England or other lucrative foreign destinations. These railways there always remained that acute shortage of all weather roads to reach out of the rural areas during the rainy seasons. Naturally, therefore, people mostly living in these areas suffering grievously during natural calamities and famine. Okay. The British introduced the railways in India is 1850 introduced, okay, and is considered as one of the most important contributions. The railways affected the structure of the Indian economy in two important ways. One of the on the one hand, it enabled people to undertake a long distance travel and thereby break geographical and cultural barriers, while on the other hand, it forced commercialization of Indian agriculture, which adversely affected the semi-sufficiency of the village economic in India. The value of India's export undoubtedly expanded, but its benefit rarely accrued to the Indian people. The social benefits which the social benefit which Indians people gained owing to the introductions of the railways were this outweighed by the country's huge economic loss. Along with this development of these roads and railways, the colonial dispensations also took measures for development the inland trade and sea lanes. In that period, the Silk Roads came. However, Silk Roads, yeah, these measures was far of the satisfactory. The inland waterways and at times also provide uneconomically, as in this case of the coast canal of the Orissa coast canal on the Orissa coast. This canal was built at a huge cost of the government exchequer. Yet it failed to compete with the railway stations which soon traversed the region running parallel to the canal and had to be ultimately abandoned. This introduction of this expensive system of the electric telegraph in India similarly served the purpose of the maintaining law and orders. The postal services, on the other hand, despite servicing the useful public purposes, remained all through this inactivities. Tata Airlines. Tata Airlines, a division of the Tata and Sons, was established in 1932, inaugurating the aviation sector. Tata Airlines started in 1932. Hello guys, how are you? All the best. Do that. Okay. Yeah, that conclusion. We completed this chapter in 48 minutes, 1 hour. Yeah. By the time India won its independence, the impact, okay, the impact of these two countries' long British colonial rule was already shown on all aspects of this Indian economy, and the agricultural sector was already sadly with surplus labor and extremely low productivity. The industrial sector was crying for modernizations. The industrial sector was crying for modernization, diversification, capacity building, and increased public investment. Foreign trade was oriented to feed the industrial revolutions in British. Foreign trades was oriented to feed the industrial revolutions in Britain's. Okay, infrastructure facilities include the formed railway networks, needed upgradations, expansions, and public orientations. Prevalence of this rampant poverty and unemployment required welfare orientation of the public economic policy. And this nutsells the social and economical changes before the country were enormous. Yeah. What was the focus of the economic policy pursued by the colonial government in India? What was the focus of the economic exercise? What was the focus of economic policies pursued by the colonial government in India? What were the impacts of these policies? Name some notable economics who estimate India's per capita income during the colonial period. What are the main causes of the Indian agriculture stagnations during the colonial period? Name some modern industries which were in operations in our country at the time of independence. Name modern industries. What was the twofold motive behind the systematic deindustrialization effects by the British in pre-independence India? The traditional handicraft industries were ruined under the British rule. Do you agree with this view? The traditional handicraft industries were ruined under the British rule. Yes, I agree with that. Give reason to support of this your answer. Yeah, there are so many supporters of it. Okay. What objectives did the British intend to achieve through their policies in infrastructure development in India? Critically appraised some of this shortfall in this industry's policies pursued by the British colonial administration. What do you understand by the strain of India's wealth during the colonial period? What do you understand by the strain which is regarding as the defined years to mark and demographic transitions from this first to second decisive stage? Give a quantitative appraisal of India's demographic profile during the colonial period. Quantitative appraisals of Indian demographic profile during this period. Highlight the salient features of this India pre-independence and appraisal structures. Undergo some of the India's most crucial economical challenges of this time of independence. When was India's first official census operating undertaken? 1881. Indicate the volume and the direction of the state at the time of independence. Where there are positive contributions, maybe British in India's discuss maybe few positives, but they are not initially. Yeah, positive. Okay, all as far as question just Indian economy 1950 to 1990.